Good evening, PWCS families, and welcome to the Family Engagement Series. My name is Yanette Boyd, and I am the Supervisor for Family and Community Engagement. Thank you for joining us as we continue celebrating National Family Engagement Month. This evening's presentation is Co-Parenting with Schools, Building Meaningful Partnerships Beyond Events. This presentation will be presented in the requested languages of English and Spanish and will be recorded. We will turn on the interpretation globe once the slide is reviewed in the requested languages. If you're on your computer, you're going to look for the interpretation button on your control bar. Once you click on it, pick your desired language. Then your icon should change. If you're on your phone, you're going to click on the Join Audio and click Call over Internet. Click on the three dots and more. Click on Language Interpretation and click on the language you want and done. At this time, the Spanish interpreter will review the slide.
Para oír el canal de interpretación, por favor, hagan clic en los 3 puntos que dicen más y ahí elijan el canal con el idioma que prefieran, español o inglés.
Interpretation will be starting now. Please click on the globe. This time, I would like to welcome Mr. Victor Powell. He is the Supervisor of Title I and IV Instructional Programs with Prince William County Schools to introduce our presenter for this evening. Welcome, Mr. Powell.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. We definitely appreciate everybody who has joined us this evening. We're super excited to continue with the capacity building, not just of our families, but also of the leadership in our division, but also within the Title I and Title IV office. We've been blessed with the partnership and capacity building within Dr. Karen Mapp already thus far this year, and we're super excited for the things to come. To me, this is just another layer in that support as far as how we partner with our families. As I always like to say, how are we co-parenting with our families in the community, but also within our schools. As far as tonight, definitely excited to introduce Dr. Karen Mapp, who is a professor at Harvard Graduate School of Education, whose work has lasted over 25 years and focused on building strong partnerships among families, communities, and educators to improve student achievement. She is a nationally recognized expert in family engagement and community engagement, having served in leadership roles for the United States Department of Education, Boston Public Schools, and several influential organizations. Again, we're excited. Dr. Mapp is also a prolific author and creator of dual capacity building framework for family engagement and school partnerships, which we follow here in Prince William as well. Let's give a round of applause and super welcome to Dr. Karen Mapp.
Thank you so much, Victor, for that introduction. It's great to be here with you. I just want to let you guys know I'm actually on the other side of the United States right now. I'm right outside of Seattle, Washington, which actually is good for me because it's only 3:35 here. So I still feel like I have a little pep in my step. It's not evening, and I really appreciate all of you that are here with us today, 42 strong. And I know you have a lot on your plates, and this is a tough time of the day. Some of you are making dinner and doing other things, so I really appreciate the fact that you're here with us. And I hope that it is worthwhile, what I'm going to share with you today. So I am going to share my screen. Oh, it says sharing is not turned on. So I have to ask one of you to let me share my screen. I'm going to send a request to do that. And so let's see, here we go. Thank you. Multiple presenters can share. And I think I have to do advanced. And I think I have to do computer audio. Let's see here. Share. Let's see if I share my screen. Screens. Okay. This is interesting. All right, let's try this. Okay, here we go. Can you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it in presenter view or is it in full screen view?
It's not in full screen view yet.
Okay,
There we
how
go.
about that?
Yes, looks great.
Okay, fantastic. There we go. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I want to talk to you about how are we defining family engagement? What do we really mean by family engagement? And I can tell you that sometimes when I work with school districts around the country and around the world, because I actually do this work internationally as well, sometimes people have different interpretations of what family engagement actually means. So I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about that. I have a working definition that I like, and it's actually one that was developed by the Connecticut State Department of Education. And the reason why I like it is because it actually was co-designed with families. And so what they did was they wanted to put a definition on their website for the state. And they decided that instead of a few folks going behind closed doors and coming up with a definition, that they would go out to their community and out to their families to say, what are the words that you want to see in a definition of family involvement, family engagement, that you think really represent the work that we need to do? So this is the definition that they came up with, and not everybody has to have the same one, but I just like this one because I think it really represents the work that we are trying to do in order to support our students and to support our schools. So this definition says that family engagement is a full, equal, and equitable partnership among families, educators, and community partners to promote children's learning and development from birth through college and career. And so when the families said that they wanted those words full, equal, and equitable in the definition, what they meant by full was that families are embraced as partners in many different ways. So there's a lot of different opportunities for them to be engaged in partnership with educators. So it's not just being asked to, volunteer in the classroom, or it's not just participating in bake sales and food events. It is being invited in to co-support the learning that's happening with the students. So to be co-teachers in a way. Now, not literally coming into the classroom and being expected to teach the content that the teachers are teaching, but to be able to support that work at home and in the community so that the students see that home, school, and the community is all on the same page. Because I was joking today with the group that I was working with, is that these young people, especially our teenagers, I joke that they're out to get us, the adults, because if you think back to when you were a teenager, one of the things that you enjoyed doing was pulling a fastie on your family, right? Tricking them in some kind of way, getting out of doing something that you didn't want to do. There was a lot of that happens. And now kids have the tools to do that. They have AI, they have social media. They're learning all these things very, very, very quickly, that I know that me as an adult takes me a while to really understand what that's all about. So this is all the more reason why we have to work together in these full partnerships. We have to talk to each other. We have to make sure we're on the same page so we can provide those supports for our students, particularly as they get older, particularly middle school and high schoolers. Very, very important for us to work together. And so what do we mean by equal partnership? Well, this means that we are seen as valuable contributors. Everybody is seen as a valuable contributor. There isn't some sort of status where the educator's opinions are more valued than the family's opinions. We're all working together. We do it in a way that's collaborative. We do it in a way that's respectful. But we want to make sure that our schools and our educators let the families know that we value you, we value your voice, we value your knowledge. Families have a lot of knowledge about their student. So a lot of times my educators will actually ask the families, they'll say, we are an expert on the curriculum, but you're an expert on your child. And so we could really want to know from you, what are some of your child's challenges? What are some of your child's strengths? Because that knowledge, that's called parent knowledge, that's considered really gold when it comes to an educator being able to do their job well. So if they know that your student maybe is quiet, but the way to really get them to be engaged in learning is to create a particular type of setting for them, all those things are really important for us to know. But if we don't see our families as equal partners, that means that we may not create an opportunity for them to share that information with us. We may act as if, we've got it all together and we know how to do this well, but that's really not true. We need you as family members to contribute, to help us, to support us as educators, because again, you are your child's first teacher. And so you've learned things about your child that could really be helpful to us in being able to create the best learning opportunities for your child. And then finally, we want this to be an equitable partnership. And I know that these days people are running away from that word equity, but I think it's foolish because what equity really means is fairness. That's what it means. It means that we're being fair. So if we have families that need, for example, you're being equitable by providing translation services to families to make sure that families are able to understand in their own language. We're being equitable when families who can't come to the school, maybe we do something virtually so that they can still participate. We're being equitable if maybe we do some of our activities in the communities where our families are, instead of always thinking that they can come to the school. So this is what we mean. We mean fairness. And so when we have a full, equal, and equitable partnership, those are the kind of partnerships that can really help promote our children's learning and development. So this is something that I find is a big aha for a lot of our educators. And I want to share it with you because a lot of times when I go into working with schools and districts, they will have something like a strategic plan for the district, which says these are our goals. So we want all of our kids to be reading at grade level. So third grade, we want them reading at a third grade reading level and not below that. We have a certain target for our graduation rates. We want it to be 100%, and maybe we're at 85. So we want it to be 88 next year, and et cetera, until we reach 100. We may have targets around attendance. And sometimes what I see is in the same list of goals for a district or for a school, under some of the more academic or developmental goals for the students that I see, it'll also have an increased family and community engagement. What I often then recommend is that we take the family and community engagement out of the goal side and put it on the strategy side. Because really engaging with our families is a strategy to improve those goals. So when we engage in these full, equal, and equitable partnerships with our families, then we see that those grades and test scores go up. We see that maybe we can do something about chronic absenteeism. We can increase our graduation rates. Because sometimes what I find is that schools think that family engagement is just something nice to do, that it's nice for public relations, that it's nice to be able to say, we have good relationships with our families, and yeah, we'll have that potluck, or we'll have that multicultural night fair with food. And I'm not saying that those things aren't important, they are. But if we limit our family engagement to just public relations and being nice to each other, we really aren't taking advantage of the full force of engagement. Because when we start really letting our families in on what are the goals for our students around academics, what are our goals for our students around their development, then our families can roll up their sleeves with us and partner with us to make sure that our students are hitting those goals. So that's why I say, especially to like our superintendents, I don't want you to just see family engagement as a communications initiative or a public relations initiative. I want you to understand that partnering with your families is really going to help you hit the mark when it comes to the goals for your students. And that's a very different mindset about why family engagement is important. So just right now, I don't expect you don't have to put anything in the chat. I just want you to be thinking about, what do you know about the goals of your students? Like, what do you know about the goals of your children? Has the district shared with you what are some of the goals? So for example, like I said, I've set a couple. Do you know about what your child should know and be able to do by the end of this year? Has that information been shared with you? Do you know where your child stands? So if we're saying that we want all our kids to be reading proficiently at their grade level, what does that look like? Have we seen examples of that? Has that been shared with us? And are we being given tips and tools to actually help us help our educators reach those goals? So that's something that you should be thinking about. Do we know what the learning or developmental goals are for our kiddos? And then we should be talking and working in partnership with our educators to reach those goals. Okay? So when I work with districts, there's 3 areas that I work with them on. And I call these the 3 spaces. And this is the space that we need to all have a little bit of understanding in order to create the conditions for effective family engagement. So the first thing we need to understand is, why is family engagement even important? What do we see when our families and our educators are working hand in hand? What do we see happen? The second space is, okay, even if we understand why family engagement is important, what does it actually look like? What does effective engagement look like? Because a lot of times what I find is people haven't been presented examples of what really effective, productive, and fun family engagement really looks like. So a lot of times we are doing the same thing that we've been doing for 40 or 50 years. The parent-teacher conferences sometimes are done the same way they were done when I was a kid. That doesn't make any sense. It's 2025. The open houses are sometimes done the same way they were done when I was a kid. Again, that doesn't make sense in 2025. So what we try to do is to say, okay, this was what effective engagement actually looks like. So we sometimes present examples from districts around the country of the fun and really interesting things that they're doing that really help to impact student outcomes. But it's not just enough to share a story about a place that's doing the work well. You have to really unpack, how did they do it? Where did they start? What were the steps that they took? What were the resources that were given to them in order to do this work well? So I'm going to give you a little taste tonight for all 3 of these areas. And we say it's the why, what, and the how of effective family engagement. So some of you on the call tonight know who these women are. And if you know who these women are, that means you're old like me. Because these ladies were in a commercial from the 1980s. And it was a commercial that was a Wendy's commercial. And they were asking the question, where's the beef, right? What Clara, because Clara's the one with the phone in her hand, Clara Peller, what they wanted to know was, if I'm going to spend my hard-earned resources on your product, in this case, a hamburger, I want to see more than what's in that picture, a little hockey puck-sized hamburger with a piece of cheese and a pickle. I think that I should get more of what we say, or what's called a return on investment, if I'm going to spend that kind of money. And so what ends up happening is that a lot of our educators want to know, where's the beef? A lot of our families want to know, where's the beef when it comes to family engagement? Why should I engage in this partnership with my children's school? Why should I participate in that initiative to raise reading scores in my district? So that's what we talked about in this new book. It's called Everyone Wins. It got published in 2022. It seems like yesterday that it got published. And what this book does is it's written in a very user-friendly way where it describes, where's the beef around family engagement? What do we expect to see if we engage with our families? And this is what we see when we do effective family engagement. So one of the things about the book Everyone Wins, and why it's called Everyone Wins, is because we found out that family engagement isn't just great for our students. So you see in that first column, this is just a sample of some of the things that happen when we have that partnership with educators, when we have that wonderful partnership between home and school. We found out from the research that it's not just the students that benefit. The educators benefit, the families benefit, the schools benefit, and the communities benefit. So as you see, and I'm not going to go through this entire slide and all the bullets, but I'll highlight a few things. Our educators, what happens to them is that when they start working with families, and you all may know this, we have educators who don't have the same cultures and backgrounds as a lot of our students. And sometimes what happens is that they're intimidated by that, or they get a little scared, and they may have biases, and we all have them, folks, about families that they don't know well, or they're not familiar with their culture. And unfortunately, what might happen is they might be listening to the news or being influenced by those things, and they develop what we call deficit-based mindsets about families. So they say, oh, those families who don't speak English, for example, we can't expect them to come to the school and participate because, they don't speak English and they're not going to be able to understand what we're doing. They're not thinking, well, we could provide translation services. Maybe we could learn a little of the language ourselves, because they're thinking through what we call you can't mindset instead of a you can mindset. That's the basic difference between a deficit-based mindset and an asset-based mindset. All right? So when they start working with our families and they see how focused our families are on getting a good education for their children, they start having conversations with them, they start build relationships with them. A lot of those deficit-based mindsets go out the window, and they really see families as true partners. So that's one of the benefits of these effective partnerships with families on our educators. Our families, when they're engaged in these partnerships, sometimes it helps them have better relationships with their children, because now they're really understand what their children should know and be able to do with the learning. They're able to have conversations at home about that. This is especially important, like I said, for our families who have adolescents at home, because like I told you, a lot of times they're intent on trying to trick us. Whereas when we have those conversations with the educators, we really learn more about what the students are learning and can have those kind of richer conversations with our students at home. For schools that have strong family engagement cultures do better academically. They have a better school climate. It's a better school culture. People are happy to work there. So they're able to keep their morale up. Their teachers like working there. And then for our communities, we see a lot of high-risk behaviors of students be decreased, because now we have this partnership between home and school. So that answers sort of the where's the beef question. Why is family engagement important? It's for all of these reasons. Everybody does better. Everyone wins. This is actually a study that we feature in Everyone Wins that really uplifts the importance of family engagement. This is a study called The 5 Essential Supports. This was out of Chicago. And what these researchers wanted to figure out is, why is it that some schools are really able to do well and other schools are always struggling? What should we be looking to do with a school to help support it so that it's really doing much better, so that it improves? And what they found out was there are actually 5 what they call essential supports. So I want you to think about it as like ingredients, the main ingredients, and say a cake recipe. So we know it would be the flour, the butter, et cetera, the sugar, the sweetener. There's some main ingredients to every single cake. I don't care what kind of cake you're baking. There's some main ingredients to every cake. Well, what they found out was there's some main ingredients to school and student improvement. So that little rectangle you see over in the right-hand top corner, that's the classroom. That's the interaction in the classroom between your student, the teacher, and the content, so the material. What they found out was that all 5 of these circles are those ingredients to make sure that what happens in that classroom works. So the ingredients are, first, the leadership of the school, the principal, very, very important. That person drives the change. The professional capacity one, that means that everybody in the school building, from the custodial staff to the lunch folks to the front office staff, all knows that they're there to support the students and they work as a team. The instructional guidance one, that lime green one, means that the teachers and others are getting really good help and instructional guidance and professional development. The yellow, our schools have to have a student-centered learning climate, meaning that all the questions are about what's good for the kids. Not so much about what's good for the adults, but what's good for the young people. But then you see that circle in the maroon that says parent and community ties. That's family and community engagement. So now think about this. What these researchers found out was that family and community engagement is just as important as the school principal, is just as important as the folks in the school wanting to work together as a team, is just as important as the professional development and the student-centered learning climate. So I want you to think about when you leave out an ingredient in a cake, and in this case, I'm going to use the baking powder as a reference. When you leave out that baking powder, the cake does not rise. It's flat, it's gooey. So I want you to think about it this way. If we take out those parent community ties, if we take out that family and community engagement, it's kind of like the baking powder because our students don't rise and the school doesn't rise. So when I say this to superintendents and others, I tell them you've got to prioritize family and community engagement in your district, because what we know from the research is that your schools aren't going to get better without your families. Your families have to be in partnership with you. You can't do this work without them, is what this research basically told us. This is what that research looks like now. It's called the 5 Essentials. I'm not going to go over this now, but I just want you to know that it's evolved, so they have a different graphic. But you'll see there in the right-hand corner, it says one of the essentials is involve families, and it says the entire school staff build strong relationships with parents, guardians, and are seen as partners in helping students learn. Parent guardian input and participation is valued in achieving the school's mission. So again, you can see that they found out that These involved families is a key essential to the success of our schools. So I'm going to try this. Hopefully you'll be able to hear this. This is a video that's was done 2 years ago, or actually last year. And it has a lot of different people talking about, again, the where's the beef, the wins when we engage our families. So if somebody would give me a thumbs up so that I know that you can hear this video once I start it.
At Fairfield Court, we have a high absenteeism rate. Last year, over 43% of our kids were absent. And so what the engagement team did, they came into Fairfield Court. We really talked about the average daily attendance, chronic absenteeism, what that looks like, and how powerful it is to engage and have the team go into the community. So having neighborhood walks, having home visits, but what that should really look like. So Sade really helped us with framing that message. For Sade really helped us with when you go into the homes, what is it the parents really want to hear? Well, you first got to start that relationship and the trust, because if they don't trust you, it's really not going to matter at all. So last week it was down to 28%. And now that can fluctuate back and forth, but that's where it is right now. And that's from 43%. And again, I really think that's due to us not only having our boots on the ground, but being there in person.
You know, I think of, my own children, which they go to schools, but they're not engaging and they're not. So I can see the impact, like my own children who don't have that family engagement and don't have teachers who reach out, how they see school and family as like two very different things. Like it's very different spaces, and where I really feel as though here my students see us as like all together in this. Like we are an 8th grade family together, your teachers, your parents, your families. So I know from my own experiences that it matters. My oldest son just went to another school that does a great job of family engagement, and from an academic perspective for him, his grades have improved greatly. He went from being like a C student to like A's and B's, and it has a lot to do with, me being in contact with his teachers doing the same thing, reaching out for areas he needs to improve. And so I've seen it firsthand with like my own family and my own children.
Last year, when school was over, I actually got choked up because it was the last day of school and there was a young, I want to say maybe he was in junior high because he seemed older. He's walking down the stairs as I'm going up. And he seemed so sad to leave the school. And he made a comment almost like, oh, it's the end of something, he said. But he said it to himself, but it was like so sad. And then as I came back down, there was a whole row of teachers and special education teachers. They were all lined up and they're all shaking hands with kids and saying goodbye. And it was just such a moving experience. Yeah, it was, it moves you when you see stuff like that because you don't see that in any other school. You could tell that even the students have such high regards for the school. There's a special place in their hearts.
One of the biggest gains, I would say, or one of the biggest impacts, I would say, that family engagement has had is that our scholars now have increasingly had the mindset that they can actually do this. They have started becoming self-advocates, having more self-efficacy. And that's because we've given parents the tools, we've given them the data, we've given them, resources, and parents in a sort of reciprocal relationship have started saying to scholars, well, this is our expectation at home. Here are the things we're expecting. The school has told us this is what needs to happen. And so we start seeing this circular conversation
where parents are absorbing the information and scholars are reacting on the fact that parents and the school are now in tune with what we want. And that literally is the success of our scholars. That in itself is going to impact not only that scholars' attendance and behavior, but also the academics, which is, what schools are about.
I love what I do. And it's hard sometimes, obviously, to be a teacher, to be an educator, to wake up in the morning on 30 and give 110. But to get to see a parent come up to me and be like, Miss Crawford or Miss Summers, because I just got married last year, so the OGs call me Miss Summers. But to come up to me and be like, you really taught so-and-so how to read. Awesome, amazing, I love that. But when other parents come up to me and say, when you had them, they were in the hallways, they were blah, blah, blah. And by the end of the school year, they love school. Now they're a leader in their classroom. Now they're doing this, now they're on this team and they are this different child. And I couldn't have done that without you. That is what fills me. That's what makes me want to continue to do this work, because I don't think I could get that anywhere else. The hugs from the kids, the hugs from the parents, it's just, it's really rewarding to really know that you're actually changing someone's life. And, a lot of my kids don't always have the opportunities that other people are afforded. And so to be able to give them those opportunities and to see the thanks and recognition that I get from parents is amazing. And I don't think I could do that doing anything else.
Okay. So I love that video. Very emotional, shows the emotions. And so I just want you to be thinking about what wins did you hear in that video? Because you heard a lot. You heard from the principals talking about their students doing a lot better, their students actually developing self-confidence. You heard that teacher at the end talking about how this work fills her up, and the being with the families really helps her go from maybe being down in the morning to being really excited about teaching. So there's a lot of ways that family engagement really has a positive impact, like I said, on not just our students, but on all of us. All right, so I hope you enjoyed that video. It is actually one of my favorite ones from a free online course that I've offered up for people. And I'll actually make sure that you all get a link to that free online course if you're interested. So when we talk about what does effective family engagement actually look like, this is another one of those areas where I find that people really like when I present this information, because a lot of times when I talk to districts and I talk to schools, they tell me that they're doing family engagement. Oh, Dr. Mapp, we really have read your books, and we really are really trying to have better relationships with our families. And I appreciate that. That's great. And I do think, though, that a lot of times what I'm seeing is family involvement and not family engagement. And there is a difference between those two things. So I'm going to go over that now. And family involvement, it's really when we kind of see our families as clients, right? So it's sort of like the transactional relationship that you might have when you go to the store. And you go to the store, you buy something, you go to the counter, you see that person briefly, you pay, you get your receipt, and you leave. Maybe you have a conversation with them, maybe you don't. Involvement is where it's kind of that way, where it focuses on sort of an individual connection quickly, and it's really expecting, like the store expects you to pay for the merchandise that you've picked up, right? So it's sort of that way, like, oh, you send your child to the school, we expect you to show up for a parent-teacher conference, we expect you to sign that form. But that's it. There really isn't a real in-depth or deep relationship that we develop between the home and the school. So involvement is really only about one-way communication. So maybe you get notices home, but there really isn't an opportunity created for us to have a conversation. Like you saw that principal when she was using her hands about us working together and us coming together. Well, in places that are sort of still in the involvement space, there really isn't much set up where there can be a conversation with families, where we can learn about families, where again we can ask them about what are their things that they've noticed about their child. There isn't that sort of reciprocal learning happening. And involvement really focuses on making sure that we have these programs and that we can check it off and say that we had them, but it's really not on developing relationships with the people. So just like I said, with a transaction in the store, the relationship is very transactional between home and school. Now, involvement is where a lot of our programs start. And I will admit that it's where we start. But what we want to do if we want our family partnerships to really be effective, we want to move from involvement to engagement. And engagement is where now we're working together. We're working in partnership. So you heard those principals talk about if we have if we want to improve our absenteeism, maybe we sit down with our families and we ask, like, what are some of the things that are keeping, the kids from being able to attend school? And sometimes what we hear is it's housing situation. It might be healthcare situations. And so now let's work together on some of those root causes of why a child might be absent. That's working together. That's doing collective responsibility. So the communication is always two-way. We honor what our families know. I mean, there is something called community knowledge. Our families know the community. They can share that knowledge with us, so their knowledge is valued. Again, we're focusing on collaborative practice, not just, checking off a box. And here the relationship is transformative. You saw that teacher shedding tears over her relationship with her family. She's been transformed by those relationships with her families. That's what we want. We want to be transformed. We want to be transformed as individuals. We want our schools to be transformed. We want our districts to be transformed. We want our communities to be transformed. So that engagement relationship really helps to support that kind of transformation. So this is a quote from an educator. His name is Larry Filazzo. And he talks about, a school that's striving for family involvement leads with its mouth. So it's talking at you as family members, and you don't get a real chance to talk with them. So they often make all the decisions, and they haven't really tried to get family input. And so they tell you what the projects the school's going to work on is going to be. They even tell you what they think your needs and goals are without asking you. Whereas a school striving for family engagement, they lead with their ears. They're listening to you. They're respecting your voice. They listen to what families think about and dream about and worry about. And as I said, the goal here is not to serve clients like at a store, but to gain partnerships, to work with you in fellowship, together to support children's learning and development. So I'm just going to quickly talk just for a few minutes about how do we do it, because this is where, we get into a much longer conversation. But I do want to mention that I have developed something called the Dual Capacity Framework for Family School Partnerships. And this really goes into the how. And what I want to do is I really kind of want to focus. That's the old framework. This is the new framework. The old framework I did back in 2011. But in talking with families and educators from around the country, I developed this new version in 2019. And it's set up like something that we call a logic model, which is first you identify the challenges to the left. And then you figure out, okay, what do we need to do differently? What are the things we need to input in the system? And then you are able to say, okay, if we do those things, what are going to be those outcomes? Where's the beef? What are we going to see? And you'll see at the end in that red box is that these partnerships we're not just doing it just because we want to be nice. We're doing it because these partnerships support student and school improvement. And so quickly, what I just want to go over, because I want to give you time to maybe ask me some questions. In the challenges, what I find that a lot of times educators haven't been trained on how to do family engagement. So they haven't learned like what are the new effective strategies and practices. And then our families, they haven't seen great examples sometimes of family engagement either. And for some of them, because of historical harm that may have been done, they're not all that interested in partnering with the schools. So the schools have to do a lot to build the trust of the families in order for that partnership to thrive. So this is where we find out about how do we do it. And this is what I had a 4-hour training today with some educators here in Seattle, outside of Seattle, Washington. And we spent a lot of our time here where we talked about what do we need to do differently? And what we talked about was that that we really have to have our school staff understand that they've got to develop relationships with families. They've really got to spend time building trust. They've got to make sure that we let families in on what our learning goals are, so our families know what it is the children should know and be able to do and can work in partnership with us. They have to see our families, again, through that asset-based lens where they value family voice and contribution. They've got to make sure that their practices are culturally responsive and respectful. So depending on our population, what are some of the things that we want to honor and that we want to lift up from our different cultures and identities of our families? We want to make sure that we're collaborative, that we have that collaborative spirit. We want to work together in partnership. And then something that we're not able to do tonight because we don't have enough time is let's do some stuff that's fun and interactive, because that's really where we learn, is when we can actually do it so that we can practice it and learn and ask people for advice. The other thing that has to happen is that your districts, your leaders, have to provide the support to do the process conditions. They really need to provide you with the resources. The administration has to say, yes, family engagement is really important to us. And they've got to make sure that it's integrated into everything that we do. So I'm going to stop here, because what I want to do is I'm going to leave you with this question. What do you do when you want to build trust with another person? Because that is the key to partnerships. In order for us to build partnerships with our families, we have to do everything that we would do with someone who we wanted to build trust with, because that is the most important thing that we have to do around family engagement, is to build trust with our families. So the same way, possibly, a lot of times the response I get back is that, we need to listen. We need to be vulnerable. We need to make sure we follow through and we have integrity. We need to make sure that, we're willing to share our own story so that someone can get to know us. So all of those things that we do when we want to build trust is the beginning. That's the beginning, the first step in building stronger relationships of partnership with our families. So I'm going to stop sharing. And we have 10 minutes left. So I want to make sure that I leave time for some questions. And I think, Annette, you already have some for me that you
Yes,
collected.
thank you to everyone who submitted questions for us. I'm just going to go down and just ask Dr. Mapp a couple of them. A parent asks, how can I foster positive engagement for my child at home and school?
Well, first thing is that I'm hoping that you are having conversations with your children's teachers, and that your children's teachers are sharing with you, again, okay, here's what we're trying to accomplish. So for example, we want to make sure that all of our students their fluency rates are really where we want them to be. So a lot of our schools, and the fluency is your ability to read with speed and accuracy, right? So a lot of our schools actually have measures that they can use to measure a child's fluency rates. So now if the school shares that with you and says, right now, your child is at a 70 and we want them to be at 100, then the two of you, your teacher and you, can talk about, okay, what are some of the things that you could specifically do at home to help with fluency? So maybe you have your child read a passage to you, and it could be in any language. It doesn't have to be English. It could be your home language. And do they stop? Are they able to say the words, fully and completely? So if if the teachers have shared with you that fluency is something that they're working on, then you and the teachers can work together on things you could do at home to help with fluency. I know sometimes with mathematics, if we're having a conversation with our educators, sometimes educators can say, like, here's a way to turn a shopping trip into a math lesson, by asking, or baking, like what percentages of flour and butter and things are we using. So this is why they're having these conversations with the teachers, and the teachers being willing to share this is how we can support those goals, because we're working together. So I would say hopefully, and if as a parent you could say, you could call the teacher or email and say, listen, can you share with me some tips or some tools that I could be doing at home? And if they share them with you and they seem still confusing, say, can we have a conversation? Can you give me a call, or this is the right time? Could you explain this to me a little bit more so that I clearly and know that I understand what it is that you would like me to do?
Perfect. I have a question for you, and this is about a teenager, since you mentioned a couple of times. The question is, my child is a junior, mostly manages academics independently. How can I stay involved without overstepping?
Yeah, see, family engagement at the adolescent level is a little tricky, right? Because I always smile because I say they go from wanting us around and wanting to cuddle and wanting us to come to school to, no, don't come to my school. We don't want you there. Stay out of my business, right? So this is where conversations, though, with the guidance counselors and others to say, what is the best way we can support our child? One of the things that I have a colleague who's done some work on family engagement at the adolescent level, and she talks about how at the adolescent level we have to become what she calls identity agents. Because at the adolescent level, our children are exploring a lot of different identities. Who do they want to be? Do they want to be a doctor? Do they want to be a lawyer? Do they want to be a dancer? And sometimes it changes weekly, sometimes daily, right? And so if we're working with our school counselors and others, they can help us. Like, how do we have those conversations with our children? How do we have our conversations with our children about social media? How do we have conversations with our children about, artificial intelligence? How do we have conversations with our children about college and the best ways to prepare for college? So, a lot of times one of my friends talks about how when they're little, we're holding their hands, we're walking side by side with them. But when they become adolescents, we're behind them. They know we're there. They want to turn back and know that we're there, but we're there to support them. So when they stumble or fall, we're there to catch them and say, okay, what lessons have you learned and how do we move forward? So again, it's not that we are invisible. Our teenagers actually tell me that they think family engagement is more important at the level of high school than at any other time. But we just have to do it differently. We have to do it sort of with that supportive hand versus being out front. Because they are trying to learn how to be adults, but they don't know how to do that yet. Believe me, we know from adolescent development psychology, their brains are working and growing at the same rate that their brains were working and growing 0 to 3. So they still need us, but they need us to be in a more of a supportive role rather than in front of them. And so working with your school counselors and your teachers, first thing we could do is help you ask questions about what they're learning, because a lot of families will ask an adolescent when they come home from school, what did you do in school today? Guess what the answer is? You all know what the answer is. Nothing. Oh, nothing. Oh, nothing. And that's not true. So one of the things that we can do as educators is we can give families questions that they can ask so that they don't get that nothing response. So if we're working together, and say, for example, we know that one of the things we're doing in 9th grade or 10th grade is, teaching kids how to build an argument, right? How to write an argument out with evidence. So one of my schools, the families asked the students, I need you to build an argument for me with evidence for why you don't have to clean your room, right? Tell me why it is. You got to build a good argument with evidence about why you don't have to clean your room, right? And so now it's kind of fun, right? It's not, what did you do in school today? And the answer is nothing. It's questions that families can ask teenagers that are aligned with their learning. All right, so I hope that helps to answer that question.
All right, and we'll have one more question. What can parents do to help support a school to ensure that they truly prioritize family engagement?
Well, I always say, you want to start with the honey approach versus the vinegar approach. But you could go to the schools and say, hey, we really want to be partners with you. We really want to help achieve your school goals. So can we sit down and maybe have some conversations how we might be able to build the capacity of our families from all different backgrounds and all different walks of life to help students achieve their goals? So could you share with us, what are some of the goals? What are some of the things that you'd like to see our kiddos know and be able to do by the end of the year? And we can help. So I think if you go and you say, let's try some things where we can be helpful, then hopefully the administration is willing to meet you halfway and have some events and some initiatives where you can work on student goals. All principals that I know, their whole reason for being is to try to make sure they're hitting the mark on their student goals. That is what they're all about. So that if they see that what you're doing is taking away from that, then sometimes they are less willing to really engage their families. But if they see that your families are saying, hey, we want to help you with those goals. We want our kids to achieve those same things. We want that too. So how can we work together? That's where I think you see progress. You'll see progress.
So perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Mapp. We just want to say thank you so much for your presentation on building our meaningful family partnerships. Your expertise and passion is truly inspiring. And so I also would like to thank Mr. Powell for his efforts in coordinating Dr. Mapp's presentation today. And before we close, we are excited to share that next week we will be hosting a session for Community Connections, Strengthening Families Through Wraparound Services. So we'll hope you'll be able to join us for that. We will be posting the survey for today's session in the chat. Please take a few minutes just to answer those questions. Let us know how we're doing and what would you like to see in the future. And for our families joining us today, you will be receiving a copy of Dr. Mapp's presentation as well as the video recording. So thank you all so much for joining us today, and I hope it's a wonderful, wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.